Kira looked at Marjorie Thompson, who sat across from her with a smile that didn't hide the satisfaction of an announcement she knew would be hard to swallow. The small conference room was filled with a heavy silence, as if everyone there knew something important was about to happen. Denise from HR sat next to her, her expression carefully disguised as compassion. What she didn't know was that this meeting, with all its formality and coldness, would be just another page in Kira's story. "We're restructuring your position," Marjorie said, her voice trying in vain to hide its corporate coldness. Those words could have been a sentence, but Kira knew that her value would not be measured by those few lines in an impersonal document. There was something else, a quiet strength, something she had carried with her long before that moment. "I understand," Kira replied, her voice firm, unwavering. She glanced at the folder Denise slid across the table. She knew what was inside, a severance package, an impersonal agreement like so many others she'd seen. 2 weeks' pay for each year of service, 3 months health coverage, and a list of career resources, Kira thought, unsurprised. To them, that was enough. To her, it was just a formality. It was clear what Marjorie and Denise expected. Protests, tears, anger. After all, Kira was 55, and she was being pushed out of the tech industry, where youth was celebrated as a sacred attribute. They didn't know that. At that moment, Kira wasn't surprised. In fact, she'd been expecting this for weeks, ever since that suspicious email that had appeared in her inbox. "Please clear your desk by Friday," it said, with impersonal coolness. Kira accepted the severance package as calmly as she would any other letter. She knew she was about to turn a page, but she didn't yet know what story she would write next. As she left the office, she glanced out the glass window and saw CEO Victor Lawson in a meeting, gesturing excitedly about financial projections. He, who had taken credit for the algorithm Kira had developed, now stood as the face of innovation. But Kira knew the truth. She knew what was really behind that smile. In that moment, she didn't feel angry. She felt something deeper, a sense of clarity, a realization that her time here was over. And as she walked out of the office for the last time, with her last day approaching, a message was sent to her personal phone. "That's it. Friday will be my last. Monday will be exciting." Kira met Gregory Sullivan, CEO of Precision Systems, a competitor to TechVantage, for a secret dinner at a fancy restaurant. Greg knew the value of what was happening, knew this was no ordinary transaction. "They really did it," Greg said, shaking his head. "Cutting out the people who develop their own technology. They don't understand what you've created." But Kira knew exactly what had happened. She knew that while Vantage Tech thought it had left her behind, it was actually creating something even bigger, something that would transform the industry. The algorithm she had developed and had been appropriated without recognition was about to be patented by her outside the company, using her own time and equipment. And with that, she would secure not only the patent, but also control over the technology that would transform the competition. Kira's smile was more than a smile of triumph. It was the smile of someone who knew she was in control of her destiny. She already had the papers signed, the terms of a contract that not only recognized her worth, but also opened the door to a bright future. The future she had always known was hers, even when everyone had tried to erase her. "How do you think Victor will react when he finds out about this?" Greg asked, barely able to hide his satisfaction. Kira smiled, but didn't say a word. The future would speak for her. Sometimes life puts us in situations where everything seems lost, where doors close and the world seems to turn its back on us. But what no one knows is that, often, the greatest triumphs come exactly when we think we are being pushed out. What would you do if you knew that the next great victory was already within your reach? What would you do if you knew that the best is yet to come? True strength lies in how you react to the unexpected. The game is changing, and now it is your turn to shine. If you have ever been through moments like this, where everything seemed lost, share in the comments. Let's create a community of people who, like Kira, know that victory does not lie in the hands of those who challenge us, but in our own hands. Kira sat down, a slight smile on her face, next to Greg. She looked at the contract, now signed, and felt a wave of relief. Everything was in order, her future was secure, and her team would have a new chance, a chance she had fought to secure. The feeling of protection from those who had always been by her side was like a well-deserved reward, a reflection of her struggle not only for herself, but for everyone who had helped her achieve this. "Beginnings," Greg said, raising his glass in a silent toast. "New beginnings." And in that moment, Kira knew that the word, end, had never been more misleading. The end they had thought she would experience was turning into a new beginning for everyone. With the last sheet signed, she stood up from the table, the folder closed, and looked at Greg. She was ready for whatever was to come. The next 2 days passed in a blur, with transition meetings, exit interviews, and formal goodbyes. Kira maintained her professional demeanor throughout, even as she felt the curious glances and whispers in the company hallways. It didn't matter. She knew exactly what she was doing. Every step, every gesture was meticulously planned. While her goodbyes were filled with sincerity, she knew her mind was elsewhere. As she tidied up her desk for the last time, the scene seemed surreal. Family photos, small souvenirs from conferences, a mug her team had given her as a gift, all placed carefully in a cardboard box. But there was something else. The award for the algorithm, the same algorithm she knew was at the center of everything, was placed with a subtle touch between layers of paper, almost as if it were a treasure she was saving for the future. Marjorie appeared in the doorway of her office, with an artificial smile, trying to hide her discomfort. "Is everything okay for your departure?" she asked, more as a protocol than anything else. Kira looked directly at her, with the calm of someone who knew exactly where she was stepping. "Crystal clear," she replied, her voice firm and calm. Marjorie, with typical corporate detachment, tried to smooth things over. "Victor still believes the company needs younger leadership," she said, as if trying to justify a decision. Kira, without losing her composure, just looked at her, never failing to emphasize her words. "I completely understand. Business is business," she said, with a calmness that cut through the air. The slight hesitation on Marjorie's face was brief, but Kira noticed. She knew what was going through her former coworker's mind. What happens now? A 55-year-old woman, unemployed, with no direction. But Kira wasn't worried. Her future was already mapped out. "Actually, I already have something lined up," Kira replied, with a gleam of confidence. "I'll start on Monday." The surprise was instantaneous, as if Marjorie was trying to process the speed at which everything was happening. "That's fast. Anything interesting?" she asked, trying to hide her surprise, but Kira didn't have time for further explanation. "A leadership position. I'm really excited about it," she said, already preparing for her new journey. Marjorie nodded absently, already thinking about the tasks of the next day, without realizing what was coming. The next morning, Kira said goodbye to Tech Vantage for good. The glass building was behind her, its lights shining like a reflection of a story she had written herself and was now completing. She took one last look at the building, where the executives were discussing how to redistribute their responsibilities to younger, less expensive people. Little did they know that in a few hours, the real revolution would begin. The clock struck 7:30, and the Precision Systems town car arrived promptly to take her to the company's headquarters. Kira was ready. She dressed in a charcoal suit, a symbol of her new phase, and got in the car, feeling the thrill of being exactly where she was supposed to be. "You're here," Greg said into the phone as she walked into her new office. "I can already see the reactions. The press release has gone live, and the messages are starting to come in." As she stared out the window of her new office, overlooking the city and its floor-to-ceiling windows, the future was unfolding before her. The official announcement was made. Precision Systems had acquired the exclusive rights to the revolutionary algorithm, and Kira was the company's new chief innovation officer. She was no longer a shadow in the corporate landscape. Now she was the leader. And then Kira's phone rang. The first message from her old team at Tech Vantage arrived. "Complete chaos here. What did you do? What happened?" Miguel, the lead developer, was clearly panicked. Kira smiled, a silent laugh, knowing she didn't have to answer. The answer was in her actions. What they didn't know yet was that the game was never about who was in charge, but about who had control of true innovation. And now Kira was finally in charge. Now it's up to you. When life throws you obstacles and challenges, how do you respond? You can follow the path they set for you or create your own. What do you choose? Share your stories in the comments, and let's get inspired together. The future is yours. I smiled as I typed back, checking in with my people. I emailed all 6 of them who had offers waiting. Meanwhile, 8 miles away at TechVantage's headquarters, the scheduled Monday morning executive meeting underwent a dramatic transformation. According to Miguel, there were step-by-step updates throughout the morning. When Victor arrived at the office, he found the company's general counsel and CFO waiting at his door. Both Ash and Fate had received the announcement in their inboxes, immediately setting off alarm bells. By 9:30 a.m., what should have been a routine meeting had turned into an emergency crisis session. Board members were dialing in remotely. The legal team was frantically reviewing my employment contract and algorithm development documentation. They were pulling up every file with my name on it. Miguel reported that someone had brought all of the research division servers to the tech team for analysis. I could imagine the scene. Victor was perfectly matched to the pace of a conference, demanding explanations from Marjorie and the legal department. The stock was already falling, and investors were clearly uncomfortable with the uncertainty created by the announcement. At 10:45 a.m., I received an email from Victor, his desperation practically radiating from the screen. He requested a quick call back to discuss the situation. I forwarded the message to Precision Systems' legal team without giving a direct response. By noon, the industry was abuzz with speculation. TechVantage's stock had fallen 7% since the market opened, while Precision Systems had risen 12%. 3 different technology magazines requested interviews with me about the strategic coup that had shaken the accounting software industry. As the day wore on, the validation I felt grew. After 15 years of seeing others take credit for my work and being told that I should be grateful for having a seat at the table, I was finally getting recognition. My new executive assistant showed up at the door, and, upon being told that TechVantage's CEO had tried calling multiple times, I instructed her to forward the matter to our legal team. I headed to my first meeting as Chief Innovation Officer, already aware of the gravity of the situation. I received another update from Miguel, who reported that the board had called an emergency meeting. The impact of my departure was clear to everyone at TechVantage. Their core technology, which relied entirely on my algorithm to process large volumes of data, was now at risk. Without the licensing rights to my patent, the company faced 2 equally undesirable options: negotiate with Precision Systems or rebuild their technology from scratch, a process that would take years and cost millions. As the hours passed, the crisis intensified. TechVantage faced a loss of credibility that hurt its investors and customers, while Precision Systems stock soared. The following afternoon, tensions in the industry escalated even further. The crisis at TechVantage spread quickly, with analysts and investors speculating about the company's survival. Precision Systems, on the other hand, was reaping the benefits of my contributions. As the situation unfolded, more rumors circulated about the impact of my departure on TechVantage and the uncertain future of the company. My new team was clearly pleased with the progress made, and I continued to work remarkably effectively as Precision Systems was much more receptive to my ideas and contributions. At the same time, TechVantage continued its decline, with analysts publishing increasingly alarming articles about the company's future. TechVantage faced a critical choice: license my algorithm for an exorbitant fee that would devastate their profit margins, or completely rebuild the account sphere without using any of the technologies covered by my patent. The company began interviews for a new development team, but rumors quickly circulated that the timeline for this rebuild would be impossible. Miguel, in our video call on Friday, reported that Victor had claimed they could recreate the functionality in 6 months, which was promptly discredited, given that the original algorithm took 3 years to perfect. This was a reality that only those familiar with the problem space could understand. Late that afternoon, TechVantage's lawyers finally reached out to Precision Systems to begin a dialogue about potential licensing agreements. Our legal team, following their meticulously planned strategy, responded with terms that were technically fair but strategically painful. The proposed fee was 3 times the industry standard, plus a public fee acknowledging my role as the inventor of the technology. There was no doubt that Victor and his team would have a hard time accepting the public recognition, something that his ego would not allow. The options for rebuilding, meanwhile, became increasingly unviable. A tense few days followed, while on the other side Precision Systems continued to grow and TechVantage sank further. Early the following week, news of a leadership change at TechVantage came as a shock. Victor Lawson, the CEO, had resigned, and the company was sinking under the weight of the crisis, with the board losing confidence and patent incompetence. Marjorie Thompson and the head of legal were also ousted. Meanwhile, Precision Systems was establishing itself as a hub of innovation. 3 months after my departure, I found myself on stage at the National Technology Innovation Conference, about to deliver the keynote address. The audience was packed with industry leaders, journalists, and aspiring developers. The applause I received when I was introduced as the creator of the revolutionary algorithm that changed the way data was processed was thunderous. Throughout the event, I shared my experiences and the importance of valuing and recognizing the work of innovators. My focus was to emphasize how companies should protect their talent, rather than viewing them as disposable resources. During the reception, several young engineers approached me for mentorship, and one of them confided that she had changed the way she documented her work after learning my story. I shared with her the importance of keeping detailed records, of protecting innovations that emerge in their own time. As the evening drew to a close, the technology news industry announced that TechVantage had finally reached a licensing agreement with Precision Systems, recognizing me as the creator of the algorithm that underpinned its technology. The company's shares, which had fallen dramatically, began to stabilize, but at a level well below where they were before the crisis. The change at TechVantage was a clear reflection of the impact of my absence and the need to properly value innovation. 4 months after my departure at Precision Systems, I was reviewing the results of the last quarter. The company, under my leadership, had launched 3 innovative new products, leveraging my algorithm to gain significant market share, even from TechVantage and other competitors. It was a moment of reflection, not triumph, but quiet satisfaction, a confirmation that innovation, when properly respected and valued, becomes an unbeatable force. It was then that Greg walked into my office, carrying a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. He brought me the news that Precision Systems had surpassed TechVantage in market valuation for the first time in the company's history. It was proof that the true value of innovation was being recognized. As we celebrated, an assistant handed me a fancy envelope. Inside was an invitation for me to speak at the annual Women in Technology Summit, discussing the importance of protecting intellectual property and how the right documentation can change an industry. The story of how TechVantage lost what it had was now a lesson for everyone. The afternoon sun shone through the windows of my office as I reflected on my journey thus far. At 56, I had finally found what I had always sought, not just success, but the recognition I deserved. My name was now forever linked to the algorithm that had transformed an entire industry. The lesson was clear. Innovation needs to be protected and recognized, no matter where it comes from.